6 months ago, I couldn't swim 100 meters without gasping for air, but right now I'm training for my first half Ironman in November, and honestly, it's been one of the most life-changing things I've done. I've recently completed 3 races within the span of 28 days, including a marathon, half marathon, and a triathlon, Olympic distance, and it's probably been some of the most fun that I've ever had. And now I have my sights set on completing a half Ironman. But some of you might be wondering, what exactly is a half Ironman? So a half Ironman, also known as an Ironman 70.3, is a long-distance triathlon event, which consists of a 1.9k swim, a 90k cycle, and a half marathon. So that's 21.1 kilometers. And then all of this is done back to back to back. There are no breaks. You just have your transitions where you're switching between the different disciplines, putting on different gear, and that's one race. And keep in mind that this is just a half Ironman, not to be confused with a full Ironman. People will get very touchy on that. So make sure that when you're talking about it, you're saying either a half Ironman or a 70.3. People will know exactly what you're talking about. So now that we know what exactly a half Ironman is, I'd say it's a bit of a jump just from the marathon side of things, definitely a big jump from the Olympic triathlon side of things, just because you have that extra distance, you're dealing with multiple disciplines, you have to deal with the logistics of the event, as well as it's just going to be a lot of continuous work and build up just to get to the point where you're ready. And that's part of the excitement. In October last year, I signed up for the Melbourne 70.3, which is happening in November this year. And at the time, I had virtually zero aerobic fitness, and my one goal was just to see how far I could push myself. And I can say with great certainty that this is probably one of the best things I've ever set my mind to, just from a wellness, lifestyle, happiness perspective. You spend so much time doing the training, but at some point you kind of just flip a switch and it becomes something that you truly enjoy. So if you're contemplating signing up, it's actually worth a shot. So now that I've completed my initial gauntlet of 3 races, I'm right back into training, and there are a few things that I want to be focusing on. The first is continuing to build my aerobic base across all 3 disciplines, adding in some speed work just so I can get comfortable with racing at higher heart rates, and then mixing in some conditioning just so I can avoid injuries. But what exactly would this look like? I already work full time, and hours tend to fluctuate quite a bit. So for aerobic base, I plan on doing 1 swim, 2 cycles, and 2 runs over the span of a week, just to make sure that I'm getting in that easy mileage and that I'm also spending as much time as I can in zone 2. With swimming, I'll just be focusing on maintaining a moderate level of perceived exertion while focusing mainly on technique. I'll also be using shorter sets, as in the past I've done sets that are up to say 400 meters, and over time your form tends to break down and you're not getting in that good practice. So by putting in those short recoveries throughout your sets, you're actually allowing your body to recover enough to where you can maintain your form for longer, allowing you to swim faster throughout your full distance. And this is basically the swimming analog of running slow to run fast. For cycling and running, I'll be focused on target heart rate ranges, and all of this is going to be sitting in zone 2. So for cycling, it's probably on the lower end, around 140 to 145, whereas for running, I'll be looking more towards the higher end, around 155 to 160. And the reason for the difference is that the 2 heart rates for different disciplines aren't exactly directly comparable. For example, if you try to maintain a running heart rate on a bike, you'll find yourself struggling quite a lot just to keep that up. It's way harder than you'd think, and your legs just won't be able to sustain it that easily. You'll be having a pretty miserable experience. So best to drop that down a little bit and focus more on getting in that volume. And frankly, this is just a lot of training volume. So if you want to stay consistent, your number 1 goal should be just making it not suck. Listen to your body and adapt accordingly. For speed work, I'll mainly be focusing on running, falling back to indoor cycling where weather makes training outdoors a little bit too sketchy. I'll be doing these sessions once, maybe twice a week, depending on recovery, and they'll have a pretty simple structure. The first session is 12 reps of 400 meters done at a 4-minute pace with 2-minute walking recoveries between each rep. The second is sets of 3, 2, and 1 kilometer done at 4 minutes, 3:55, and 3-minute pace with a 2-minute walking rest in between. And lastly, there's 10 sets of 10-second hill sprints on a low to moderate grade hill with 90-second walking recoveries. Once again, when doing all of this, my number 1 goal is just being consistent. When you look at anyone who looks like they're having a good time running a marathon, whether that be from their speed, their pace, so literal good time, or they're just enjoying themselves, they've probably been building their fitness over the span of months and years, not days and weeks. So consistency is key. Finally, for strength and conditioning, I'm keeping things simple and just doing 2 30-minute sessions per week from home. I don't have a full gym setup. I only have a pull-up bar, resistance bands, some rings, and some weight plates, and I think that's probably more than enough to get me pretty far. So the first session is full body strength that focuses on movements that support endurance performance. This would be things like pull-ups, push-ups, Bulgarian split squats, single leg deadlifts, as well as core work. The goal isn't to be lifting heavy, but rather to correct any imbalances that could form from spending many hours doing swimming, cycling, and running. The second session is on mobility, core, and plyometrics, so this will be things like hip mobility drills, things like a couch stretch, dead bugs, side planks, as well as some basic plyometrics like jump squats. I prefer to keep these sessions on the shorter side just so I can slot them in between all the other training sessions that we already have to deal with, and the primary goal is just to stay injury-free and make sure that your whole body can keep up with the amount of volume that you're doing. And now that I've said all of this, it's pretty intimidating, but that being said, it's also really, really exciting because the way I see it, these are just checkpoints. And with enough focus and discipline, you're just ticking off those different boxes, and in a few months, you'll be performing at a different level. So hit subscribe if you want to follow the journey, and let's keep moving.